Just as predicted, my neighbor, every day he's been saying, when he sees me, he says, Happy New Year. Well, it's a night, he's friendly. No. So this morning, he didn't say Happy New Year. So I said, hey, did I offend you? He said, no. He said 2022 is looking a lot like 2021. It's not really stacking up to be the big bang he was hoping for. Oh, Krishna. I said, every day is a Happy New Year for us. What can you do? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But actually, it doesn't really work like that. Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But devotional service is transcendental. The contact with devotee and the holy name is transcendentally corrosive. Their resistance just gets, who knows how long it's going to take, but sooner or later, it just eats away at their resistance. Can't resist. Sweet, sweet can't be beat. What a taste, them two lotus feet. That was by Dwarkadish, and Prabhupada liked it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamuni Tiravanatari Jamuni Tiravanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanatari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Ibo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Bo, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribhaja Kishaya Siddhit Shisham, His Divine Grace Abhaya Children, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BBT Founder Charja Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Kota Vaishya Brinda Ki. Namchar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shridwaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Ki. Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Gita Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mathura Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Navadip Dham Ki. Jagannath Dham Ki. Jamuna Mai Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Tulsi Maharani Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Sambhira Bhakta Vinda Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Say Siddhara Kiridari Ki. Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga Ki. Gopremanande. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to divine literacy to C, Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritcha Naram Chaivam Narottama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Narayana Namaskritcha Naram Chaivam Narottama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. I'm confused. Did I say it twice? Ha Krishna Swadama Upagate Dharmaganadi Pisaha Kalandasat Shammesha Paranoko Narodata. The Bhagavatam is Brinda's the son, is arisen just after the departure of Krishna, accompanied with knowledge of religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness of the age of Kali should get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer respects to the personality of God Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, the goddess of living Mother Saraswati, the author Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. So by my calculation, unless we're in a parallel universe, we are in 5th canto, chapter 11, text 9. Yep? All right. You may want so many things. I want 1,000 things. Doesn't mean they're going to happen. Sorry. Ekadasa. Hey Krishna. Ekadasasan. Sasan, yeah. Manaso. Hi. Vritaya. Akutaya. pancha diyo bimana matrani karmani puram cha tasam vedanti haikadasa vira bhumi ikadasasan manaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani param chatasam vadanti haikadasha virabhumihi ikadasha san manaso hivritaya aikutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha virabhumihi ikadasa shan manaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha virabhumihi ekadashan manaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasa virabhumihi kadashan manaso hivritaya akutaya panchadiyo bimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam Vedanta haikadasi virabhumihi. Want to give a shot at it, Mataji? All right, let's let our unembodied soul have a whack at it. I'm not going to own you. Prabhu, your chance. Take it away. Well, so there it is. Ikadasa 11. Asan. There are. Manasa. Of the mind. He. Certainly. Vritaya. Activities. Akutaya. Sense of action. Pancha. 5. Diya. Senses for gathering knowledge. Abhimana. The false ego. Matrani. Different sense objects. Karmani. Dravida, before I forget, after class I want to ask you about this word abhimana. Help me remember. Puramcha. And the body, society, nation, family, or places of nativity. Tasam. Of those functions. Vedanta. They say. Ha. O. Ikadasa. 11. Vira. O hero. Bhumi. Field of activity. Translation. There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the object of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities, such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, societies, friendships, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. I'll say, you say. There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the object of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities, such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, societies, friendship, and personalities are all considered by learned scholars the field of activity for the functions of the mind. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The mind is the controller of the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. Each sense has its particular field of activity. In all cases, the mind is the controller or the owner. By the false ego, one thinks oneself the body and thinks in terms of my body, my house, my family, my society, my nation, and so on. These false identifications are due to the expansions of the false ego. Thus, one thinks that B is this or that. Oh, there's something wrong in this text. Yeah, he, because I got to be here. Thus one thinks that he is this or that, which makes a whole lot more sense. Thus the living entity becomes entangled in material existence. Om Ganata Vrandasya Gyana Gana Salakya Jakshushmalatangena Tazane Shi Gurave Namaha. The Bhagavatam gets down to the heart of the thing. The Jiva Goswami starts the Tat Sandarbha by explaining that there's the seer, the seen, and the act of seeing. In other words, this is reality. This is where we are at. There's not a question of blind faith or cultural imposition. If you were to strip away everything, how do we know what we know? We're all sitting here. We all see the world a little bit differently. We all have, on one hand, our subjective truth. I'll give you an example. If there's a materially attractive woman, or we could say man, let's get tripped out on the gender. A tiger, how does it see that woman? Tasty snack item. Actually, a tiger thinks, a little skinny. Maybe I'll nibble on Govardhan, even more tasty, It's true. If surfing and you wear a wetsuit, you're black and shiny, they get bitten by sharks sometimes. And what usually happens is the shark takes one bite and spits them out because they're a little bony. They're thinking it's a nice juicy seal, marine animal seal, and they bite into, too bony for me. So that beautiful woman, the tiger or the shark is thinking, a little bony for me. I'm going to look for something a little more succulent. Now, because it's the same object. The point is I'm making the same object seen by different entities is experienced differently. This is talking about the field of activities and the senses and all the conclusions that we draw from what we see. Well, if he's a lusty man, he thinks, hey, baby, haven't we met before? You want to take a ride in my car? Or, whatever it is. And a sadhu, Pandita Samadarshana, thinks, spirit, soul, forgotten all about Krishna. How can I take some prasadam, take the holy name? So the seer, the seen, and the active seeing are all the same. What changes it? Well, it's the false ego that changes it. So is it all relative? Hey, you got your truth, I got my truth, and we're all just, John Locke's principle of the first principle of, jurisprudence, of the American legal, the justice. My free will ends at the tip of your nose. I can flail my hands around as long as I want, but I can't punch you in the nose. All right, so you've got your view, I've got my view, and we just don't make sure, we somehow or other, like the gears, we fit and we all try to work together here. Or not. Well, that's all. So is truth subjective? Well, is truth depending on blind faith? Well, two men read the Bible day and night. One reads black, the other reads white. Well, that doesn't get us anywhere. Well, so the point I'm trying to make, seer, seen, active seeing, Bhagavatam strips it. Bhagavatam seen through the eyes of Jiva Goswami, through the eyes of the Vaishnavas. Because it makes a difference. Daniel, how you see the world makes a difference. No, it wasn't a question. I know you're eager to say. You'll sit here soon enough. But, how we see the world makes a difference. It matters. Because that determines how we see the world, based on how we see ourselves, determines how we act. And from actions, everything flows where we want. We are exactly where we belong. Each one of us you can't blame it on God. You can't blame it on, the laws of chance and physics. We are exactly where we deserve to be. We're experiencing exactly as in the field you plant and you get crops. As we've acted, we are suffering and enjoying and getting the result of. And it is nicely explained by Navina Narada yesterday, and we see it torn away and washed away too. Here today, gone tomorrow. So that whole thing that washing machine that we're in is based on how we see. So it matters. So Jiva Goswami says, all right, what do I actually know? How do we know what we know? Well, I know that I'm here now. I'm conscious. I know that I'm conscious. I'm not so sure about you. You could be, figment of my imagination. You could be inert. You could be so many different things. I only know my field of activities. I don't know your field of activities. But I know that I'm here. Everybody has to admit that. They were all conscious. How long we're conscious, what is the cause of that? That's a whole other issue. Let's strip down to what we actually know. Okay, and that's where Jiva Goswami, that's where the Vaishnavas start. We are not sentimentalists. We are not blind faith. We're not simply following. Okay, let's strip it down. Okay, here we are. I'm conscious. So, well, then, how do I learn? Do I learn from my senses? How do I gain knowledge? Okay, I'm here, and what does this feel? I'm seer, seen, in the act of seeing. So how do I process all of this? Well, okay, I'll use my senses. That's Lord Brahma tried it. How'd that work out for him, sitting on the lotus, So let me explore the cause and find out the root of all things. I will become the master of all I survey. Well, good luck with that. You can't even see what's on the other side of this wall. And I periodically read Prabhupada's introduction to the Sri Upanishad. It's absolutely fantastic, of course. But, senses have a tendency to cheat, tendency to be illusioned, tendency to make mistakes. Well, sense perception is not going to get me there. So what is the next thing? Well, all right, I may be a little small living entity, but you combine a bunch. One brick does not make a wall. But if I get a bunch of bricks, then I'll have a wall. I can make a staircase. I can progress forward. So it's the combination of the amass of knowledge. Man has progressed from a caveman trying to strike flint and start a spark, and now we've got nuclear power. I stand on the shoulders of giants. That's the whole ethos of education and modern advancement. We reach for the stars. Sounds quite poetic. But even if you accept that, all right, Sadhuputa's example, I love it. All right, by material progression and cultivation of knowledge, you can improve. Yeah, I accept that. Take the example of a pole vaulter. I don't know when they first Olympics, modern Olympics, 1905 or whatever it was. I don't know what the pole vaulting. You can grab your phone, none, it doesn't matter. Let's just take a number. Let's suppose they pole vaulted 15 feet. You know, you're running with a boing and you go over the bar, right? All right. Now, I don't know what the record is now. You can Google it. It'll keep somebody awake. What is the world's record now, the Olympics? I think it's 22 feet or who knows what it is, you know? But that's significant. And they developed, you know, better techniques, they better fiberglass poles. There's a whole, so you could say that there was a progression of knowledge and they reached greater heights, right? So then if I just keep progressing, whatever the field may be, modern medicine, if I just keep incrementally progressing, we will eventually conquer death. Or whatever it is. We'll reach, you know, to the edge of the universe. Of course, what about the next universe and the next and the next? That's another thing. But the point is, taking our example of by incrementally improving our knowledge, we have reached greater heights, our pole vaulter. But will that pole vaulter ever reach the moon? I mean, you could even get a jet pole. You could get Acme Space Spring shoes. I don't know what you could do. But you're never going to get to the... Does anyone here accept that by gradual, the Olympic record will eventually be the moon? And if the moon, why not Mars? Anyone accept that? Oh, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So on the same principle, why should we conclude by incremental knowledge, eventually we'll understand everything? Why? It's completely false presentation. So senses aren't going to do it. Accumulated knowledge is not going to do it. Ultimately, we have to accept that it is revelatory. It descends. Classic example, if I'm glued to this seat, I can only reach so far. Can I shake hands with Dimitri or not? I'm glued. I'm limited. I am finite. I can only reach this far. Can I shake hands with Dimitri or not? Oh. We have a yes advocate? Defend your answer. If he comes to me, if he takes the initiative, I am limited. That's a fact. I can learn yoga, just same like my pole vaulter. I can do stretching exercises. I can get surgery on my back, and maybe I can get a couple inches, but I'm never going to reach him. But if he takes the initiative, easy as can be. So Jiva Goswami makes the point that ultimately it's revelatory. It's descending. All right, so if it's descending, then what's the source? And I want to speed up and say some other things. But he gets us to the Vedas. And of all the Vedas, he works our way. We have to accept the principle that it's revelatory. It depends on mercy. It's descending, not ascending, like Ravana with his staircase to heaven. It's not going to happen that way. So if it's revelatory, then there's a whole progression. Eventually it takes us to the Vedas, and ultimately it takes it to the Bhagavatam. So my point is that the Vaishnavas are the only people standing on solid ground. Yes, I said it. The Bhagavad, and here we're getting a taste of it. It just unpacks everything, and we're hearing from the Bhagavatam. So that was my intro. And therefore, as it's being described here, we have to think, we have to know. Seeing, we have to know. Does a fish know that it's in water? Of course, I haven't talked to too many fish recently, but it's natural, it's accepted, it's actually, was it, barometric pressure, the atmosphere, we're actually, just like the fish is swimming through water, there's actually some resistance from this atmosphere. We're moving through an atmosphere here. Now, we've just become used to it. Like if you put your hand in a cast, you ever had the old clunky cast? I broke my, anyway, fool learns by bitter experience. I broke my arms 4 times growing up. Oh, watch, what could go wrong? I think I can fly. So, it's an interesting experience. But if you have your arm in a cast, and I remember 6 weeks or something like that. What happens when you take your arm off, when the cast is off? Atrophy, okay, fine, fine, fine. There it is. What happens, Bhakti Bob? It goes up. When they zzz, your arm goes up. Why? Yeah, it's a weird thing. Trust me, I know. Why? What happens? Because you've learned to compensate. You're compensating for that weight, and that's become your conditioned state. But when they cast off, your arm goes up. So we are profoundly conditioned. Bhagavatam is laying, hey, we're conditioned by your sense of false ego. So many different things we're conditioned by. My society, my family, my, this, that, my place of birth, Why do people love Buffalo, New York? Anyone ever been to Buffalo? I'm sure I'm offending somebody. Oh, it's a miserable place. It's competing with Detroit for the most and Cleveland. I think Cleveland wins. They call Cleveland's mistake by the lake, or they call it Leaveland. Lake Erie caught on fire and burnt for 3 months. It's on the edge of Lake. I mean, it's the armpit of the nation. It's a factory town that's collapsed. But people love it. Cleveland, yay! They got T-shirts, Cleveland. I'll never leave Cleveland. Why? Because they were born there. Well, my family lives there. It's a wonderful place. So that's an extreme example, but all of that are different layers covering us. So the compensation. So the point is, we have to learn to compensate. Another Sadhaputta example, one of my heroes. They've done this experiment. You can wear glasses that invert. It's not a complicated thing, but just everything looks upside down. And they try to get you to pour a glass of, you hold the pitcher here, you pour the water, it goes into the cup. But everything's inverted. They can't do it. They can't bounce a ball. You think about it. It's like you're bouncing it off the sea. It's just, we've all tried it. If you're looking in a mirror and try to get something, it's just completely discombobulating. But here's the freaker. There's a two-freaker. That if you do it long enough, you can do it fine. You hold the glass like this, you pour the water down, and zhit. Why, on one hand, is that any less logical than holding the glass and pouring like this? It's just the reverse of the thing. But one we're used to. The fish is used to the water. We're used to being in this atmosphere. And here's the double freaker, because I said, but they get completely used to it. They can bounce a ball like this, play ping pong. It's pretty far out, But when you take the glasses off and they're looking at reality as it is, so to speak, like Prabhupada says, daydream, night dream. What's the difference, really? One is a more prolonged period, so you think that the daytime is real and your dream was unreal. But really, it's just an extension of time. One's longer than the other. So here's the thing. When you take the glasses off and you're back in reality, where you're really used to, you can't do it. You can't hold but you have to become reoriented. You have to become So the Bhagavatam is rewiring us. What's the time? Oh, geez. We think, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I guess I'll just say it. We think how do we give up a lower taste? Higher taste. All right. But what really is that higher taste? Now, in our beginning stages, I'm speaking for myself, in our beginning stages of devotional service, well, prasadam tastes better whenever gruel and nasty bones and feathers we were, onions and whatever, who knows what garbage we were eating. Well, prasadam, it's fresh, it smells nice, of course, it's Suddha-sattva, but we like it because it tastes nice. We feel better. We follow the regulative principles. We come to goodness. Of course, then sattva, and it goes on and on. But what is that really the higher taste? On one hand, we do it because it tastes good. We do devotionals because it feels good. We live with devotees because it's pleasing to the mind. You know, it's not all this false ego and anger and agitation and all of that. All right, that's a higher taste. But there's an even higher taste. Prabhupada wrote me in a letter. I'm still working on it. You know, I wanted to go here, I wanted to go there, I had this issue, that issue, you know. First thing Prabhupada did was call me a fool, which is fantastic, and right. And he said, okay, fine, you want to do that, you can do that. You want to do this, you check with your GBC, you work it out, fine, you know. I didn't want to do pujari work, I wanted to go on book distribution, all right, fine, you know. You work it out. But Prabhupada didn't leave it there. Prabhupada said, but very soon, he said, you follow 4 good principles, chant 16 rounds, serve the Vaishnavas, preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Prabhupada said, and very soon you'll come to the point where you'll be happy simply knowing that Krishna is pleased. That's the higher taste, that satisfaction. That it's not that, oh, my mind is now comfortable. Ching, ching, that equals happy. Oh, prasadam is luscious. Ching, ching, that equals happy. Spiritual happiness. On one hand, it's true. Like you've got fire and heat and light are the byproducts. So these are byproducts of devotional service. Oh, I'm living with the devotees. It's so much more peaceful than with the crazy people I was living with. I love it, generally speaking, when and I've offended so many people, why not pile on? The devotees go home and see their family, you know, they take a vacation, see their family, you know, and on one hand, you whatever, fine, go. But generally speaking, they're so happy, especially if they stay for a while, a day or two. Hey, I got to sleep. Temple commander wasn't telling me to do anything. Oh, I read halfway through Bhagavatam. You know, okay, fine, great. But you extend it after a while, they're so happy to get back with the devotees. You know, they're just peaceful. It's, you know, when I was a householder and I had kids, you know, you have to do the family dance. And at my former wife's mother and her sister had not spoken for 14 years. And they'd gather together. I remember sitting at the table one time, you know. We cooked prasadam and whatever, you know. And would you tell Sally to pass the salt? Tell Mary she can get it herself. I mean, they wouldn't even talk to each other sitting at a table, you know. Now, that's extreme. But there's all kinds of, you know, minefields and subtleties, especially now. You can't talk about Trump, or you can't talk about Biden, you can't, COVID, I mean, the whole roof blows off the house. So, you know, they just get devotees, you know, generally speaking. I mean, we've got our issues, but generally speaking, you know, just be with the devotees and, you know, it's a little off the track, but it's fun. The principle of purifying. Karmis don't say this. I remember one of the first, because we're talking about what is rewiring ourselves. What is that higher taste? What is that happiness that's not equated to the field of activities and my mental state? What if there's something else? Which there is. So at the beginning of it, I was to his, I can never repay this man. Durlabh Prabhu was the temple president in Laguna Beach. And to support the temple in those days, they used to sell incense. Krishna makes the best sense. And the temple president, or whoever, you know, if he couldn't pawn it off to some householder and had to do it himself, would service the incense accounts. So 3 days a week or whatever, usually on the weekends, he would drive out, and you know, and it's, you're a young man and you got to drive. Nobody knows what it was. Well, most of you don't know, but it was wild in the hippie days, you know. And He'd just come out of that whole milieu, and he'd had to go into these shops, and people were offering him, coffee, tea, or me, It was a rough scene, but they were being offered all kinds of stuff. And it was tough for him. I was a young kid, 16, 17. He said, why don't you drive around with me? I need association. And my job was he would run into the shop, get out of there as quickly as possible, and then we'd drive to the next place. And my job was to read the Bhagavatam. All we had was first canto Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's 3 volumes. And I would sit, the van was a typical devotee van. There was no seat, no passenger seat. It was a milk crate bolted to the floor, and I would sit on that milk crate, and I would read Bhagavatam. And we would drive. I would go it was Saturdays and Sundays. I would love it. And I would just read Bhagavatam. And I remember one particular event that the van door was tied on with ropes. It had fallen off. The hinges had rotted out, and they tied it on, So he was, we'd just been reading Bhagavatam. He wanted to get in and out of this head shop as, fast as possible. He threw open the car. We're parked on the curb. Traffic is busy here. It was right on the Coast Highway, Laguna Beach. Cars are flying by like this, He throws open the car door. He's about to swing out. A big one of those big beer trucks, those big, long beer trucks, was just barreling down the Coast Highway. And, he wasn't at a red light or a stop walk, so he threw the car door open, was just about to spit. And that beer truck came out, wham! Ripped the car door right off, pulled us out into the street, I was like calling for my mother. I don't know what I was thinking, And he went, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate, which Uttara's praying to save, her child in the womb when the Brahmastras. He immediately went into a Bhagavatam verse. I mean, he was a little shook up, He said, later I told him, well, that was purifying. But I was so impressed that this guy is not on the same circuit as me. He's not thinking, he's got a whole different way of seeing the world. And when you hear devotees say this a lot, when they go through difficulty, they're not cursing God, they're not, Mr. Northcraft, Dr. Northcraft, the professor at the University of Michigan, our neighbor next to the Ann Arbor Temple, who was a smart guy and loved the devotees and had a lot of, hillbilly from the Ozarks. He was originally from Arkansas. So he had these different things he used to say. So there was a devotee was saying, if I'd only done this, if I'd only done that, if I'd only... So after we're all thinking like that. If I'd turned left or turned right, it would have done this. I should have married that girl or dumped this or stayed in this temple or, whatever it was. If I'd only done this, I'd be a millionaire. So after this devotee was rambling on like that, Dr. Northcraft said, son, there's more than one way to be wrong. We think, well, that was wrong. If we'd done this, it would... No. We've all got karma and destiny. The material nature is the original whack-a-mole. When you were a kid, did you ever play whack-a-mole? I think you used to have them in the supermarkets. And you put a quarter in or a nickel, depending what the rate of inflation was. And this mole pops out of and the game was you hack it with You don't win whack-a-mole. It just keeps coming. It comes out of a different... You just fatigued and give up. So the material nature is the original whack-a-mole. It's, misery is caused by the living entities, misery is caused by the material nature, misery is caused by the mind and body. You can't get out of it. So the simple point I'm trying to make is that... What is that simple point? The simple point I'm trying to make is that Bhagavatam is the truth. And we have to, if I'm driving a car, I had a car that was out of just like the arm, when you take your cast off, it goes up. We have to see through the eyes of Bhagavatam and know what we have to compensate. We have to know if I lean against this wall, I'll fall asleep. Therefore, what do we do, Bhakti Daniel? We don't lean on the wall. We have to compensate. You have to compensate. If I have a car that's going to pull in this direction, then I have to steer in this direction. I have to compensate. So we have to look, wait a minute, I think I'm happy, I think I'm unhappy, I think I like this, I don't like that. I like this service, I don't like that service. I like this devotee, I don't like that devotee. Oh, we'll be more gentle. We just don't, we don't. But we have to think, wait a minute. I'm seeing through the false ego. I'm seeing based on my, all the different layers of conditioning. And ultimately, because we're running out of time, anything else major I wanted to say here? But just for fun, and we will end then. I was thinking of all the different indicators of why subliminally we know that this world is not actually hitting it. It's not actually making it for us. Like, I love Vijay's line, and I'd never heard it before for some reason. I'm good, because I'm good. Could be better. Isn't it? And he says it with a smile. I'd sit and get my teeth punched out. But the point is that why in every society is there intoxication? There's nothing out in Arizona, no offense. But, I'm what are they, what are the Indians out there? Not Navajos, Apache. I'm an Apache out there, and I'm living on lizards and cactus. Not much out there. But I'll learn how to make tequila from whatever that agave or whatever it is, and you ferment it, People in prison, they learn to ferment. In prisons, they fermented. In prison of war camps, they fermented rotten potatoes into vodka. So, but in every society, they make intoxication. Why? Because they're not happy, really, with their current state, altered state of consciousness. Why do they say, thank God it's Friday? What does TGIF stand for? Thank God it's Friday. Why do they say thank God it's Friday? Because the rest of the week sucked. And you can just... Why do they go on vacations? If they're having such a great time, stay. If you love living in Cleveland, stay there. So the point is that there's a intrinsic instinct calling of the living entity, this is not it, there's more. And if we have we need the association of devotees. We were talking, who gave class yesterday? Anyway, they were talking about, so I forget, maybe whatever, but how devotees have an effulgence. They see devotees, and there's a certain maturity. They don't get all rattled about everything. Rabindra Swarup, when the devotee said, Rabindra Swarup said to Prabhupada, oh, that's exciting. Prabhupada said, exciting? Devotees don't get excited. We get enlivened, we get invigorated, but we don't get agitated like you put nitroglycerin and whatever it is, and that gets excited and blows up. We're not talking about that. So if Krishna says, I'm adventure, and I was just, because I was talking with some devotees yesterday, our Janani Nivas up in Fallbrook. Yeah. So he called me yesterday, and he's working, he's a household, he's got all of his obligations. He doesn't get to preach much. And somehow or other, he met somebody, Sage Yoga up in Fallbrooks. And they don't mean sage like Rishi. It's like sage the spice, because they're up there, out there in the outback or whatever you call it. So they were taught, somehow the person was a Sage Yoga, gave him a card. So he went out to his car and he gave the guy a Bhagavad Gita. He thought, you should read, it's yoga, it's the basis of you, whatever. And the guy, all right, I'll take it, So then he thought, some time has gone by. He said, I should check on that guy. So he saw the sign. And maybe he drove by and saw Sage, so he walks in, Sage Yoga. And the guy says, I didn't know how to reach you. He was so enlightened. He said, I didn't know how to reach you. He said, listen, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I got to take my class. He's got 3 or 4 studios. He said, I got to take my class students to the next level. Will you come here? Will you give class? You know, he asked him, because he's in Western dress. He said, can you do kirtan? You know, because kirtan's kind of hip out there, you know. Can you do? He said, I think we could muster that together. So he was calling me, you know, can you guys come out? And, you know. So just by that little bit of effort, a whole adventure opens up. We in Boulder, in Denver, we've been trying to get, there's a fantastic college, Colorado State. They're a little puffed at University of Colorado in Boulder. They think, you know, they're state college, they're a little, you know, they're not so. Colorado State. I'm just telling you, what is it, Janmaishvaya Shruti Shri. They're not so intoxicated out there. They're a little humble. So anyway, but we've been trying to get this little restaurant. It's just the right size for us. And make it a little, you know, Krishna lounge, Krishna lunch, you know. And we never can get it. We've been trying for years. Because the guy never puts a sign in it. And it's restaurants like, what, 80% failure rate or whatever. So we'll be on Harinam and, oh, it's a Chinese restaurant. You know, a couple months later, you know, whenever I'm out there again, we go by, the boys go by, it's an Italian restaurant. Well, they didn't put a sign. And it, you know, it's been a Mongolian, Norwegian, you know, whatever. It's been all this different stuff, right? So I was maybe it was Tuesday, whatever. Somehow or other, they found out the owner. And they went to see the owner. And they said, listen, this, and they went in Western dress. And they said, you know, this thing keeps failing. You know, and we keep saying, but, you know, we'd like to get it. We'd like to put a restaurant. He said, I'm burned out on it. I'm tired. I already, lease is changing. I already got to read, you know, every time you get a new person moving into a restaurant, you clean the whole thing. And I said, I'm just going to turn it into a regular shop. I'm done. I've had it. So they do it. We're trying to get it, right? Whatever you want, put in there. We'll put it, you know, we'll do it. He said, So they were pushing him. He said, all right, you know what I want? He said, I'll tell you what I want. I want to go Govinda's restaurant. What? And the guy went to school in Australia. And we've got Gopals, we got a bunch of, and he just loves Prasadam, you know? It was just like, so devotee took off his hat, he pulled out his sikha, hey, wait, you know, I'm a Vaishnava. Got it immediately, you know? So, I mean, those are just simple. I'll give you another example. My mother-in-law, and every mother-in-law joke was true, but she just passed away a few days ago. She was the oldest living disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She was 100 years old. And living in Alacha, it's a whole story. And the Alacha devotees are absolutely fantastic. And Mother Mukhya is a hero. The way she took this devotee under her wing and took care of her. But the point is, you know, by the time you get to 100, I mean, the wiring starts to burn out. Things are, you know, it's breaking down, you know. So she, for the last few months, I'm not involved, so I don't, you know, but my son was telling me, last few months, she'd become severe dementia. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know who she was. And nothing, just zip. Somebody hit the delete button and it was like, you know, off. And you can imagine, you know, and she's a devotee. She's been a devotee. She was the treasurer here for a number of years. So, and then she just stopped speaking. She just completely shut down. And so my son called me and said, can you say some prayers? Not that, oh, save her or bring, no, just, you know, that she's at the end, can the devotees offer some prayers? So we did a few things. But the far out thing, and my son was saying, you know, she can't chant, she doesn't know where she is, what's going to happen? 24 hours, they said she's going to go in the next 24 to 18 hours. 18 hours before she left her body, she just snapped back. She knew the devotees, she knew where she was, and she's kind of a tough old bird. All she wanted to do was chant. They asked, do you want any water? Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Can we fix your pillow? Hare Ram, Ram, Ram. Nothing. She wouldn't, nothing. She chanted at her full strength and left her body chanting. So I was thinking of the Ishopanishad verse, how Krishna says, the supplicant, the devotee offering the prayer says, even if I forget you, please remember me. So if we can recognize, wait a minute, I'm stuck in this field, I'm conditioned, it's not working, it's never going to work, and take shelter of the Bhagavatam and devotional service and learn to rewire ourselves that, hey, you know what makes me happy? Pleasing Krishna. Not pleasing Krishna in this way, not pleasing Krishna in this place, not pleasing Krishna as I want to be pleased. But let me just please Krishna. And it's not so extreme. I swear to you, I'm almost done. It's not so extreme. What Prabhupada says that a mother's love is the closest thing to spiritual love reflected in this world. And I remember with my mother, she would take us at the beach until we got a house by the beach, but she would take us at the beach. And then she would always quizzically ask, why is there sand in everything? You know, we're kids, you know. But the point I said, you're at the beach. It's kind of the nature of the thing. But why are we suffering in this world? Well, hey, maybe it's the nature of the place. But the point I wanted to make is, there were 3 kids, my brother, my sister, and I. Invariably, some kid would drop their lunch in the sand. You could just count on it, you know? And my mother, she was a good mother. I can never repay her. She'd always give her sandwich, or, whatever it was, the kid, their last piece of cake, and they dropped it in the sand. And my mother, I'll take mine. And why do they slave away? Just, one of the legal pickpockets. They work so hard, but if they see the kid happy, it's an illusion, but it's an indication, reflection. Prabhupada said, what is the good parent's happiness? Ram, he's working hard. What is his, of course, Ram's a devotee, not the best example, but as a parent, why are they working so hard? Why? If the kids are happy. The happiness is seeing the kids happy. It's not a quid pro quo. I ate this, it tasted good. It's nothing to do with that. I gave up what tasted good. So in a similar way, to come to that point that is the deepest, richest happiness, that Krishna's pleased. And if we do that, well, the life becomes adventure. Instead of grit your teeth, what do they say, die young and leave a good corpse, because old age ain't for sissies. In this world, it's just downhill after a certain point, So, but if a devotee's life, like Maharani, that was her name, my mother-in-law, even she forgot Krishna within the heart saved her. And in the interim, adventure after adventure after adventure. So this is where the Bhagavatam is going, and this is why it lays it out. You are here like a mall. That's why it lays it out, so that we can say, okay, I've got to compensate, I've got to adjust, and this is what I'm going to get if I do it. Okay, we can end there. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada. We went a little over time, but sorry about that. Pole vault. Okay, hey, hang on. So wait. Hang on. He said 1904. I want to say for the rest of... Okay, so here's just a point of context to end with. In 1905... The Olympic record in 1904 was slightly over 12 feet. In the last Olympics, it was over 20 feet. They went from 12 feet to 20 feet. So I should be optimistic that by material progression, I'm going to conquer it all. If not me, the next generation, the generation after them. Nope, you're not pole vaulting to the moon. It's not happening. What's that? Oh, I want to ask him later on.